Now, Hugh Osmond is our next expert witness for you. He's one of the founders of the Punch Taverns pub chain. He owns a number of hotels and restaurants, and he was one of those involved in the expansions of Pizza Express in the 1990s. Welcome to BH, Hugh Osmond.
Good morning.
Now,
Morning, everybody.
you pulled your punches, didn't you? You didn't open across the whole country.
No, we opened our three biggest venues yesterday, which went extremely well, and we're opening all the rest on a staggered basis. I mean, obviously, you'll appreciate it was an incredible process to get back open. It wasn't like reopening, like we'd been closed for a week. It was like a brand new opening. We had to rebuild supply chains. We had to train all the staff. We had to get everybody ready. So it was a big exercise. We've done the three biggest places. We're very pleased with that. So we will probably accelerate the others.
Just name check them. We have listeners all over. Just name where they are.
Well, our best known is the Copper Club and Tower Bridge, which has the igloos, which have quite a big Instagram following. Obviously, they're very good for social distancing, but people were out on the terrace as well and in the restaurant. And then we have two other large Copper Clubs in Sonning near Reading and Streatley not far away. And then we have more that we're going to open around the country following last night's success.
And when you say success, I saw drunk people bunched up together, cheek by jowl. Did you see that?
We didn't have much of that. No, we had
no drinkers.
For the first hour or so, staff and the customers were a bit unsure, right. And the bit overhung by this appalling doom and gloom that's been perpetrated by the government and others, with their campaigns. And then after an hour or so, everybody just relaxed. They got on with it. They were pretty sensible. People had a few drinks. They were out with families. They were laughing. They were behaving like human beings. I mean, I think people isolated have not been able to be human. So it was incredible how they were enjoying it. They were thanking us for being open. They were just having a great time. And all our staff was so pleased to be back.
It must be very good to have work. We can't imagine the uncertainty faced by people in the hospitality industry unless we hear of the contrast of joy when you can work. But it's an interesting phrase, the doom and gloom perpetrated by the government. I mean, isn't the doom coming from the virus? That's the doom. And then it has to be communicated that there's a risk of catching and spreading it. That's not really the fault of the government, is it?
The virus is not the fault of the government, but the terrible reaction to it obviously is. I mean, I think this is probably the worst set of blunders since the First World War. I mean, absolutely disgraceful treatment of young people. We've had 300 people who were previously healthy under 60 who've died of this disease. That's just 300 out of 55 million odd people in England. It's far fewer than die in car accidents, fewer than die at home. Accidents at home, fewer than die of suicides, cancer, or a myriad of other things. And these are the people actually primarily work in retail and hospitality. And it's absolutely criminal that these healthy under 60s have been locked up, prevented from working, prevented from going to school, prevented from going out, prevented from seeing friends. It's just a travesty that the government has responded like that. And at the same time, failed to protect actually the old people where the disease is really nasty, who've died in their droves in care homes. Hospitality has been terribly treated.
It's very powerful criticism, because let me tell you what the gentleman I spoke to on the street told me. He was about 20, but he lives with his parents, so we can safely assume they're twice his age. The point is not that the young people aren't getting it. The point is that the young people can transmit it, Hugh. That's what we're told. The whole thing we've got to recognise is my ability to pass it to you. So that's the point of the transmission problem. It's not just about getting it, it's about giving it.
Absolutely. And that's why, the worst mistake that was made was not getting infection control right.
Well, let's not relive that again, but just what we're talking about for the reopening of pubs is that there clearly is an indoor-borne risk. When people get drunk, their social distancing goes down. I witnessed that myself. And we heard from Professor Mickey, there's an aerosol-based transmission system. So if you have someone boozed up, laughing and spluttering at you in your face, that is a clear risk of transmission. So all that being said, do you feel you are going to see more and more pubs opening despite these risks?
The risks are absolutely minimal. The incident rate at the moment is 1 in every 2,200 people. and it's falling by the day. The majority of people who will be going out either don't have the disease, which is obviously all but the 1 in 2,200, or they will be asymptomatic, which we know means they're far less infectious. We don't know that they're not infectious at all. Even the WHO originally came out with an announcement saying they weren't infectious at all, but we know they're much less infectious.
Right.
So the chances of this being transmitted, around the community are minimal, and the disease has never been transmitted heavily around the community. The vast majority of deaths have arisen from infections
Yep.
in hospitals and care homes, not down the local pub. This is a myth.
Let's talk money. Firstly, how much do you think you have in your company has taken from the furlough scheme, benefited from the furlough scheme?
I couldn't give you the exact number off the top of my head. We've got hundreds of employees who were obviously would have been put out of work. There's no income for the entire industry for this period.
So you don't criticise the government for giving with the other hand. You've criticised it very strongly, but you wouldn't criticise. I guess it's millions that's come to your staff, is it?
I don't think it's millions, but it will be a fair chunk. No, I think Rishi Sunak has done a very good job at trying to mitigate the effects, which I think in the circumstances, is only fair. The government mandated the closure. It wasn't like we had a choice to struggle on. So I think where the government mandates the closure, just like if somebody accidentally knocked down your house, it would be behoven on them to make good in terms of compensation.
Okay.
And it's a very smart move to try and keep people in employment. The biggest misery that would happen would be millions of young people unemployed.
Right. So it's important mitigation there, because you did have some powerful criticism, but you have got some mitigation there. On that front, are you braced for a VAT cut? The Sunday Times reports there could be a 6-month break for hospitality and potentially construction equipment. I don't know how much. We've seen this has happened in Germany, it's happened in other countries. Is a company like yours expecting a VAT cut? I know you want one, but do you expect one?
I think that although our openings went very well yesterday, that businesses have been closed 3 or 4 months, and it won't be back to normal for another 2-3 months. And therefore, if there isn't more assistance to the industry, many businesses will go out of business, and millions of young people will be unemployed. A cut in VAT would be one, very straightforward and actually smart way that would enable predominantly small businesses to rebuild their balance sheets, to actually make up for the losses. Because although there's been the furlough scheme, everyone has still had costs going out the window. And this is not just an employer mainly of young people. This is one of the best industries for young people to start their own businesses. So, the people who really suffer are not actually people like me. I know there are people on your show who will think, this guy just wants to get the money in. But no, the vast majority of people in the industry are young people, often their first jobs and often their first businesses. So it'd be really, really good if there was some help from the government.
All right. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Hugh Osmond, one of the founders of the Punch Taverns pub chain. Quite some explosive reaction there, I think, from Punch Taverns as we looked at the morning after the night before.